Thank you everyone for coming to our speaker series. This is the second one of this year. Before we get started, I of course want you all who don't know a lot about what the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights is about, I'd like to give a good background to give you just a little bit, I guess, of information and maybe a little bit of touching on the different type of things that the organization does for the local community in Greater Illinois. So I will turn it over to David Shapiro.
Well, thanks so much, Kayla, and thanks so much to Thompson Coburn for hosting us today, and to our Next Gen Leadership Council, of which Kayla is one of our most active members for putting this event together today. There were so many reasons that I was glad that yesterday's eclipse didn't mark the end of the world, and one of them, what I was really looking forward to this event today that focuses on our economic justice program, and what that means a little more specifically is the provision of corporate and transactional legal services to small businesses and nonprofits, principally in historically under-resourced areas of Chicago. And the work, as we see it, is really a way of helping to support communities and to help close the gaping racial wealth gap that exists in Illinois. When I was in law school, I didn't hear a lot in my civil rights classes about corporate and transactional law. I didn't hear a lot about corporate, I don't know. You know what I'm going for here, right? But civil rights classes didn't talk about corporate and transactional. The corporate and transactional classes didn't really talk about civil rights. But this is a program where civil rights law and corporate and transactional law really come together by providing critical services to help narrow economic injustices and racial disparities that exist in Chicago. And really pleased to that Amy Cook, an attorney with our Chicago Lawyers Committee, the principal attorney in that program at Chicago Lawyers Committee, is speaking today. My colleagues Chris Bridges and Angela Deere are also integral parts of the program who make it what it is and make it successful. To just touch briefly on some of the other areas that Chicago Lawyers Committee works on, and which I invite anyone who is interested to become involved in and find out more about, are as follows. Our voting rights program is extremely active in election protection throughout the state of Illinois, as well as throughout Indiana, pushing back against laws that would disenfranchise people on a systemic level, pushing for the expansion of access to the right to vote, and on a very practical and ground game level, coordinating volunteers to protect elections at polling places and through a hotline on when elections are actually occurring. And there are lots of opportunities to get involved there. Our equitable community development and housing program is pushing back against housing discrimination, and one of the most nefarious forms of it recently has been source of income discrimination, where people who have a housing voucher are discriminated against illegally on the sole basis that they're using a voucher as their method of payment. In Chicago, the overwhelming majority of voucher holders are Black, and so the source of income discrimination essentially is equivalent to racial discrimination, and we're pushing back hard on that. There's actually a training on that very area of our practice happening tomorrow with a registration deadline of 2 p.m. today. So if you're interested, let me know ASAP, and I'll make sure you get registered. It's gonna be a really excellent event with our housing group. Our education equity program is working to secure fair education funding so that disparities in education funding don't continue to create and perpetuate racial discrimination and inequality. They're going to be down in Springfield just tomorrow, pushing for a bill that would promote education equity throughout the state. They also provide lots of opportunities to get involved through pro bono work on exclusionary school disciplinary cases where kids are getting kicked out of school, having their lives terribly disrupted, turned upside down, often for unfounded reasons or reasons where the punishment just doesn't fit the infraction. And our settlement assistance program partners with the Illinois Northern District in order to ensure that litigants in settlement conferences who couldn't otherwise afford counsel get court-appointed settlement counsel. Lots of exciting opportunities at Chicago Lawyers Committee, and I really encourage you to get involved. Michael Parks on our board and Kayla, of course, on our Next Gen Leadership Council are really fantastic points of contact to learn about all of the pro bono opportunities that we offer at Chicago Lawyers Committee. For those of you who aren't at Thompson Coburn and would like to become involved in our pro bono list, let me know, and we'd be happy to sign you up. I think I'll leave it at that to make sure that Amy and Kayla, who are really the main event today, get to dig in deep about our economic justice program and the incredible work that is being done with our law firm partners and with our community partners in that area. I'd be remiss if I failed to mention a really exciting event coming up on that work specifically on June 27th from 5 to 7. We're having our Power of Connection event, which really celebrates this work. And I'm not sure, some of you may have heard of a firm called Thompson Coburn. It's going to be winning an award because of its fantastic partnership with Chicago Lawyers Committee in this transactional work. At that event, we'll be honoring an individual attorney as well, and Greater Chatham Initiative, one of our close community partners. There's going to be a farmer's market in the sky, as we're calling it, which means that some of the small businesses that we've supported will actually be there. And you'll have the opportunity to buy delicious chocolate granola and jewelry and some CMOS-oriented products from 3 of the businesses that will be there. Check it out on our website, Power of Connection, on June 27th, 5 to 7. Would love to see many of you there. With that, and I mean it for real this time, I'm going to stop and turn it over to Kayla and Amy.
Thank
so
you,
much.
David. So again, welcome. Today's series is focused on closing the racial gap, transactional legal support. Just to give you a little bit of background about Amy Cook and what she does with the Chicago Lawyers Committee. She's attorney with the Economic Justice Team for the CLC. We call Chicago Lawyers Committee CLC. And the team works with nonprofit organizations and small businesses in Illinois by providing transactional legal assistance. And they serve low income and underserved populations. The CLC has programs that assist these businesses, including the Corporate Governance Check It Up Clinic, which many TC attorneys here today and in the Chicago office participated in last July. One of the many reasons these programs aid in racial and social justice is because Illinois has been said to be the state with the greatest racial wealth gap in the United States. Today, we'll be speaking with Amy Cook to learn more about the Economic Justice Team and what they do on a day-to-day basis. Amy has broad experience in and a passion for nonprofits and small businesses, having run a small business law practice and serving as a nonprofit executive director. She served on the board of directors for a number of organizations and is currently the governance committee chair for the Illinois Stewardship Alliance. She has long been active with the Chicago Bar Association, serving on the editorial board for over 20 years, with 2 terms as editor-in-chief and as the chair of the Food Law Committee. Prior to returning to law practice, Amy has worked as a consultant for nonprofit organizations, assisting with strategic planning, corporate governance, professional development, and she's also an adjunct professor of business and communications at Aurora University. She received her bachelor's in communications from UCLA and her JD and a master's in journalism and communications from Drake University. Please, everyone, help me welcome Amy Cook. So today we're going to start our discussion about the Economic Justice Team's work with nonprofits and small businesses in general. But before we do that, the community partners play an integral role in both of these departments. So we'll start off with how the community partners work with the Economic Justice Team and then feed into the actual work that is done for small businesses and nonprofits. Then we'll hear a few more success stories that the CLC has from some of the clients that they've helped. And then at the end of our chat, we'll open up the floor for people to have Q&A. So going straight into the community partners that you all serve. Who are the community partners that the CLC works with to receive prospective nonprofit and small business applicants? And can you tell us a little bit about these organizations?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to share what we do here. And as I said, passionate. So I am really passionate about nonprofits and small businesses. So I hope to share that passion with you and get you involved with this. So some of the community partners that Kayla was talking about, they are, of course, nonprofits themselves. So sometimes we do work with them as they are our actual clients. So maybe they need some sort of assistance. They need a lease reviewed. They need some sort of partnership agreement with another organization. So they work with us, but then also we're working with their community. So they're working with small businesses that we'll talk a lot more about. And then sometimes they do work with nonprofits as well. So some of them specifically are Greater Auburn Gresham Community Development Corporation, Greater Englewood, Greater Chatham Initiative, Sunshine Enterprises, Urban Juncture / Build Bronzeville, and Entrepreneurs Academy. So those are kind of the ones that we work with quite often. There are some new ones that we're working with as well. Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council, South Shore Chamber of Commerce, Women's Business Development Center, which we have worked with in the past and are just kind of like reconnecting with them. And there's a few other community projects partners that we're looking into working with as well. But that kind of gives you an idea. They definitely are, they do similar work, but they're just working within their own neighborhoods and regions. And they're fantastic. So I'm not sure to what extent, you might have had some interaction with any of them, but they are doing amazing things for our communities in terms of working with the entrepreneurs, small business owners, and they do many other things as well, but that's how we work with them.
Okay, so we'll jump into the nonprofit work that you do. Can you tell us what type of issues you typically see from nonprofit or emerging nonprofit organizations?
Yeah, so nonprofits of all shapes and sizes do come to us. So there can be people who contact us who are at the very beginning part of this, of just thinking through like, hey, I just see this need in my community and I'd really like to do something about it. And they really haven't quite gotten their feet wet with anything yet. They're just kind of thinking through this. So we still want to help them. That's great. They're still welcome, but we might send someone like that to our nonprofit boot camp. And that is for founders and emerging nonprofits. And that's a 3-day program, 2 hours each day. And we do kind of walk through everything of like, how do you get financing, which is probably the biggest issue, budgeting, the nonprofit board composition, which is so important. And then we kind of get into also how you actually get that 501c3 designation as well, which they can certainly come back to us for help then with. We also talk about like, you don't have to become a 501c3 necessarily. If you get a fiscal sponsorship or just, if you have a passion for whatever it is, you can, maybe you can just find a similar organization and go work with them. But I think that really helps people decide, do I really want to do this? Because it is a lot of work and you need to be funded and, having a passion for it is one thing, but getting it up and running is another. And then we do have nonprofits that are pretty well along. They may have been doing the work in some respects. Maybe they do have a fiscal sponsor and they want to become a 501c3. So for those, we do want them to have a board, at least to have 3 people on a board in Illinois. And we need to see a budget and a business plan. So that's kind of getting them up and running as a 501c3. So we do need to see those 3 documents to kind of see that they are serious about this. And then we can place them with one of our wonderful volunteers who can walk them through actually getting that 501c3 designation, filing that 1023, if I have people in here who do that already. Into the weeds a little bit, but which is a pretty extensive, lengthy document if you're doing the standard one. So it's great to have the attorney helpers and just getting them started. Filing articles of incorporation in Illinois. So just kind of everything, kind of getting them up and running. They might need some corporate governance documents as well. The attorneys can provide that as well. So those would be like kind of the newer nonprofits. Did we get into the existing
Yeah. So that's formation and basically helping them get started. And then even with the ones that are established, like if there's any cleanup that they need to do, are there any like other documents that they need drafted or revised? Like what other type, like after they're running and they've established the nonprofit, what are some of the other type of issues that you help nonprofits when they come to you after being established?
Yeah, all the time. They need documents all the time. So some of the established ones, if we didn't work with them, they may not even have those corporate governance documents. So we do kind of ask that as well. When we're just talking with them of like, hey, do you have a conflicts of interest policy? And sometimes they don't, and that's one of the really important ones. So when we're kind of going through what they might need, we kind of even say, and it's sometimes, it's maybe a new ED, maybe it's a long-standing nonprofit, but they don't know where their policies are. And, I just came in, I'm not sure where to find it, or maybe it's been 20 years since we've done this. Maybe our bylaws need updating. So there's a number of things that even more long-standing nonprofits need just updating. And then as we were talking before, that nonprofits really are businesses too. So, there's a lot of crossover you'll see here with the nonprofit and a small business world. So when they're up and running, they need many things that just a small business would need as well. They might need an employee guidebook. They might need to figure out whether somebody's an employee or an independent contractor and kind of go through that. They might need the agreement with an independent contractor with a confidentiality clause, some advice about what they can and can't put on social media, leases, reviewing leases, really kind of any MOU or contract that they may be presented with, and it's kind of intimidating them a little bit. Should I sign this? Is this in our best interest? Or maybe they need something drafted to present to a partner. So just all the different kind of contractual things that, any sort of business or entity would need as well.
So you mentioned the boot camp for anyone who's trying to start a business. And I mentioned that Thompson Coburn last year did the corporate governance clinic. Can you give us a little bit of detail? I know some people in here already know because they participated in it, but for everyone else, can you give some detail about what that program is and how it's run?
Yeah, we're looking forward to doing that this year as well. We don't have a date yet, but hopefully in the next couple of months, we're going to put together a corporate governance checkup clinic. So that can be done virtually or in person. And there's just a number of nonprofits, it's not hard to fill this up, who want to sign up, and they kind of bring in whatever documents they do have. It's their bylaws and their governance documents. And then we have a checklist. So if you do want to volunteer for this, we do make it nice and easy. Like if this is not your area of expertise, or maybe you've only done a little bit, or maybe it's just something you're interested in. We have wonderful documents that just the various things to go through and ask them. And then if they don't have this, follow-up questions. And then there's a place where they can, if they really need something further, they can come contact us and we can probably help them out with that. But it really, they're just concerned about, again, I say if it's an ongoing organization, but with a new executive director, new board, new staff members, they just really want to make sure they've got all their documents in place. If it's a brand new organization, again, that didn't work with us and, they're just not quite sure, maybe they did this all themselves, they just want to know, are we legit? Are we up and running? Did we do everything legally? So it's a very good way to just make sure that they feel good about that they've got everything in place.
And just as a plug, as a transactional attorney, especially for any junior transactional attorneys, that checklist is golden. I can tell you, when I've worked with nonprofit clients where they have a question, I know I can go to my COC checklist and say, okay, where do we have to go to get this? So if anything, yes, it's great to help the organizations that need assistance, but it's also helpful for you to get that tool for your billable or pro bono work. So how do partner firms such as Thompson Coburn and others play a role in assisting the economic justice team to providing nonprofit services other than through programs?
Definitely volunteering for our matters. David sends around an email every 2 weeks, which is our pro bono opportunity distribution list, which of course you are on. It may just come through a pro bono coordinator. It might just come to Kayla and Michael here. Works a little bit different in different organizations. But we have a list of matters for all of the different areas of the organization. But we have a good number that go out like every other week for the transactional legal team. We probably had about 6, I think, on the last list, and 3 got taken right away, and a couple got taken right after that. So that's the way to kind of actually get involved with a specific client and kind of take them on as a client then and work through the issues that they have, which I think from what I hear is very rewarding and certainly is for me when I take on the matters. And when I hear from the other volunteer lawyers, I feel great for working with these great nonprofits and small businesses that we have in Chicago.
And I know the COC and the economic justice team, when you all have matters, sometimes you keep them in-house and you're able to do things on your own. And then you're a little bit selective with what needs to be farmed out. How do you go through that decision process?
If it is something that is fairly easy, we really do like to have the volunteer attorneys get involved. But if it's something that's truly just answering a few questions perhaps on something, if it's looking over something that's like a very short document and pretty standard kind of thing, that can be the kind of thing that we can handle in-house. But we do prefer to work with our volunteer attorneys. Most of the things we see really are a little bit more complex and will take a little bit more time. So that's where these people come in then. So yeah.
And we actually have a matter right now. We are dissolving a 501c3 to keep a 501c4. So I can see why that's one you probably want tax counsel to look at. Okay, so what are the eligibility requirements for a nonprofit to receive assistance from the COC?
So the nonprofits are, we're a little more loose on the eligibility because just kind of by definition, they're kind of doing good work in their communities. We definitely are looking for those ones that are working on, racial equity and lower income communities. They do need to kind of fill some of those requirements for us. But many of them are that come to us. So we just kind of make sure, that we're looking at those kind of issues, which is a little different than the small business. And then as I had mentioned, we do need a board list, a minimum of 3, the budget and business plan for a brand new one. If it's a more existing ongoing nonprofit, we also need to see if they want us to look at a contract, we need to see that contract, of course. We need to see their bylaws as well. A lot of times something they're asking us brings the bylaws into it. We need to see those bylaws then. So we might need a few extra documents that we let we let the organizations know we're going to need these various documents then. And then I review them. Usually I have a phone call with whoever submitted the inquiry just to kind of get a little bit more information about what it is they're looking for, kind of ask a little bit more specific legally kind of questions. They're usually not lawyers. And then once it's ready to go, I draft the description for it, and then that's what goes out on the pro bono list.
Can you give us some examples of maybe some of the types of nonprofit organization the COC currently serves?
We serve like really across the board, it really is like kind of anything you can think of that is working within their community to make their community a better place to be. So we do work with a lot of organizations that help with job training and job skill kind of things, which is great. We don't really get that in many other places in life, not really in high school, a little bit in college, maybe not all that much. So many people are just, in the communities are, how to do interviews and resume planning, or it can be actual job skill training that they can do too. They can actually come into organizations and learn to do particular tasks. So a lot of job training, job skill type things. working with youth and kind of getting them prepared, for the world as well. Travel kind of things where they might take kids to other places in the world, to open their eyes to new experiences. With healthcare, we don't work with like kind of any specific healthcare matters, but we do work with things that are providing like a community clinic for like preventative care kind of things. We work with people who are working formerly incarcerated people who, getting them job skills, housing. So it really does run the gamut of that, of just kind of anything that's kind of helping their communities be successful and helping the individuals in their communities.
All right, well, I'd like to transition now to the small businesses. I know, like you said, there's a lot of overlap, and especially the work that you do.
Quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Is there any state resources for the pro bono type work you're talking about as well? I mean, is there like a state agency that might do some similar things or not? Or do you feel like a niche that doesn't exist?
Yeah. A lot of times they, there's obviously legal aid for so many different things. But working with these transactional matters for nonprofits and small businesses, there aren't really many other resources to send them to. If there are any sort of state agencies that help, I'm not. You can certainly contact like the AG office, and they'll answer some questions for you. But yeah, Erica, did you have?
Oh no, there's Forefront, which covers the whole state, but I think CLC, just like Kayla was mentioning, it's really to address the racial wealth gap. And so they're not mission agnostic, the organizations. For the legal resources, I think, the Bar Association has a lot of I'm co-chair of the Tax Exempt Organizations Committee at the Chicago Bar Association. So we run a lot of programs around that kind of work, but also like probably internally at the firm.
Mm-hmm. And I do know like the Small Business Association helps a lot with what we're about to go into, but most of the legal work they won't touch because they don't want to be held liable, and they would send them to someone like the CLC or one of the community partners who will help them with that aspect.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
In terms of, it sounds like the boot camp is for the EDs for the most part, is that right?
It's what we call for founders, and then we have long talks with them about you're going to have to choose whether you want to be the executive director or the president of the board, or but we go through that.
Yeah, I guess, and sort of the question was sort of, do you interact with the board? Are you advising the boards ever? Or are you more kind of working through an ED or a founder?
Right. Yeah, it's usually one individual or maybe a couple from a group that wants to get up and running. We don't really work with the board, but that's another area that I've heard there's a lot of need for, though, is to kind of talk with nonprofit boards about making sure they understand what their roles and duties and responsibilities are.
Also boot camp for them too.
There needs to be. We'll work on that. Yeah.
And there's also opportunity. So I know that through the clinic, there was someone who just needed help with corporate governance. And then afterwards, they wanted a little bit more help with bylaws. They had a little bit of expansion questions that, required legal assistance. And we were actually able to accept them as a pro bono client. Okay. So there's opportunities once you're hooked up with one of the partner law firms to perhaps, engage them on a one-on-one basis. So can you tell us the type of issues you typically see from small businesses and how, if any, do they differ from the nonprofit issues?
They differ in that we're talking about mostly LLCs now, so just a completely different business structure and organization. More just the straight business kind of issues that, of course, the nonprofits have as well, but the nonprofits have that whole other layer of being a nonprofit IRS exempt organization that you need to deal with. So the small businesses, as I say, are usually LLCs. We get a few corporations as well. So sometimes it might be helping to set them up as the legal entity, just kind of advising them. That could be something I do as just kind of that brief legal advice of just, hey, here's some benefits of LLC versus sole proprietor versus corporation. I can kind of walk them through that pretty easily. But then the other issues, I think we talked about the community partners. We do want our small business clients to come through our community partners. So they've already been kind of vetted to a certain extent. They've gone through a program. Most of these community partners do run their own like small business boot camp kind of thing. They call it different things, business academy. So they run like different cohorts, maybe 3 or 4 cohorts a year, 8 to 12 weeks, something like that. So we want them to have come through one of these programs because we really know that they're like, you know, a serious business person at this point, that they've had training, that they have a business plan, and we want to see their business plan and a budget. But then in terms of the legal issues we see, you know, again, it's all the contractual kind of things. It's, you know, if it's an LLC, maybe it's operating agreement. It might be having other kind of partnerships with another business, any kind of contract that might come across their desk that they're being presented with for us to review. Again, leases as well. You know, if they, a lot of times they're worried about like if they've developed like processes and procedures for things, they want like a confidentiality agreement to present to people that they're sharing their information with. So it's business entity selection. IP is a big one as well. So yeah, Michael has definitely helped us quite a bit with that. He's our trademark guy, and thank you so much for that. And so yeah, we see a lot of trademark, but it can be copyright as well. It can be kind of IP comes into play with social media quite a bit. Looking through the confidentiality we talked about. So yeah, I think those are like kind of the basic issues we see with that.
And I know with the nonprofits, you have the boot camp program and you have the governance clinic program. Are there separate programs that you run specifically for small businesses?
Yeah, so we work with those community partners where, you know, I mentioned that they usually have some sort of business academy that they're running. And so we can come in and give presentations to their groups. If they are not working with a lawyer at all, many of them are, some of them are. If they're not working with a lawyer at all, or we've worked with them for a number of years, we can kind of do all the basics that they need of like the business entity selection, understanding contract basic kind of things. Those are all, you know, really needed, and they seem to enjoy those. And then if they already kind of gone through the business entity selection in the programs, we can come in and do maybe a more specialized kind of presentation, such as on intellectual property. Some lawyers don't, you know, they're not IP lawyers, so, you know, they don't cover that. So we can come in and give something a little bit more specialized. I can give the presentation, or again, it can be something that we can put out on our distribution list as a call for speakers and volunteers to come in and give a talk on whatever your area of expertise is then as well.
So is there a different method when partner firms like Thompson Coburn, when we assist with the individual matters for nonprofits, is there a different process that's done for the small businesses?
No, it all goes out on the pro bono distribution list. So yeah, talk to Michael or Kayla or David or me about, you know, I'm not sure how that always works. So I'm not the best person about that, of like whether every individual gets that. And then you would talk to your pro bono coordinator or however your firm works that to volunteer for the particular matter. In general, we do like people to go through their pro bono coordinators, but things get picked up pretty quickly. You know, like once we put out that list, I usually start getting emails the same day, sometimes same hour of like, hey, is this matter, you know, still available? And like, yes, it is. Thank you so much. And yeah, so they get picked up quickly. If things are not picked up quickly, if it's something that is a little bit more complex that we need like really specialized kind of work on, David does kind of start, you know, asking some people for assistance, and people step up, and that's wonderful. So yeah.
Like that kind of work.
I have a question. So if you have multiple people that are interested in the same matter, what's the determination or the criteria for how you determine who gets it?
Usually kind of a first come, first
Is
served.
it? Okay.
Assuming like this would be like member firms where we feel pretty comfortable with knowing that they're appropriate to handle. If it's something where a firm, you know, we don't know who the people are or just have not heard of them, you know, we do try to work with member firms, of course, is the idea. So yeah.
And anyone at TC, if you know you're interested in pro bono work, the Next Gen Leadership Council, we meet monthly, and David gives us an overview of like any matters that really have a need, like an urgent need at that time. So if you're looking for some non-billable work, please reach out to me. So for the small businesses, what are the eligibility requirements for them to be engaged by the CLC?
Yeah, so we do have a little bit more stringent eligibility requirements for the small business owners. And this does come through there's a national pro bono organization that gives you some guidelines to work with. So they are on our website, and I don't really want to like necessarily read through all of them, but just to give you an idea, a little bit more. So there's things in terms of like the household income needs to be within 500% of the federal poverty level, and the business income has to be at a certain level. We want to see them that they're making some money, because sometimes we do get people coming to us who they're just not really doing anything quite yet with their business, but yet still are requesting help. And we just want to make sure that they're kind of like, using resources wisely, that this is an ongoing business. So we're working on that a little bit right now to refine that a little bit more, but I think it's like maybe a $2,500 annual that they paid out from the business. So I talked about like the household income as well. So that operate or serve a historically disinvested neighborhood. I had mentioned how refer to one of our community partners. We look also for just some, if it is a bit of a gray area, we do a little bit further thinking through it. Does it create jobs or provide job training for residents of low income or traditionally underserved communities? Does it provide a unique service to the community? Does it attract investors to the community? Does it attract other customers or clients coming into the community and perhaps spending money in other ways then as well? So those would be some of the factors we go through.
Can you give us some examples of the small businesses that the COC currently serves?
Again, it runs the gamut of like, for the small businesses, they do anything and everything. And what we're looking for more is like how they're affecting, we want to build, ongoing wealth for that individual and, hopefully some employees that they can hire over time, but then how they're also impacting the community at large. So in a way, we don't really matter like whatever they're doing. We've had people who are doing like a pet service and pet supplies. We have people who are doing health and wellness products and services. We have people doing beauty services and supplies. We have people, we have a game app developer. That was like pretty cool too. So, it's like all different types of things, really interesting things. Some of the organizations are virtual. Some have a storefront location. Food is always a big one too. People who are doing consumer packaged good products, but it could be somebody who has like a cafe or coffee shop as well, a restaurant. Food is a great way to do a small business for some people as well. So yeah, the types of things are across the board, and it really just matters that we're trying to build their business and then their community as well.
What would you say is the ratio or I guess comparison numbers of how many nonprofits the COC serves and how many small businesses the COC serves?
We do a lot of nonprofit work. I think we've seen some numbers from last year that maybe 200 something nonprofits served. With small businesses, I think it was around 48 for 2023. So and the reason for that is like we would and could take on so many more small businesses, but it is a matter of capacity and that we want them to come through those community organizations as well. So that's kind of why the numbers look like that. Whereas with the nonprofits, as I was saying, the standards are a little different in terms of many nonprofits are doing great work. We want to work with them. The small businesses, we need to have them a little bit more set up and structured and be referred to us from the community partner.
So with all the great work that the COC does, I'm sure you have many success stories to share. Please grace us with however many you'd like to right now.
Well, one of, in terms of the stories, I think I really like the quotes that we get from people. I just like the sense of relief they feel. I think it was Jackie who had said like, just when we had found placement this was a nonprofit matter, and she just said like, her stress level went down 20 points or, something of like, and people just feeling that like they know they're in good hands with the attorneys that we place the matters with. The attorneys know to ask the right questions about things. And so often it is a matter of like, oh, I didn't think about that yet. Or like, oh, I didn't know I needed to have that in place. Or, oh, I was supposed to do that. Or, I was supposed to file that. Or, and so they just feel so much more relieved, after working with the pro bono attorneys. They just feel like both small businesses and nonprofit leaders are so passionate about what they do, and that's part of what's so wonderful about working with them. They want to focus on what they're doing. The small business owners, they know their businesses, they're doing a great job with their businesses. They're not necessarily lawyers, and they necessarily want to know about these things. So that's what we all do, is that's why we're here, is to help them use our specialized expertise to help them. And so, it's just mutually beneficial. Like, I feel good helping them, and they feel good knowing that, that they can sleep at night and not be worrying about these various matters that come up. And then same with the nonprofits as well. They're doing some sort of great thing for their community. They don't necessarily want to worry about the filings and the taxes, and so that's where we all come in, and again, can have them sleep well at night.
Well, we know that a lot of the attorneys in the room can assist the CLC by becoming volunteer pro bono attorneys. But there are other ways that we can serve nonprofit organizations, such as serving on boards. So can you tell us what it takes to serve as a civic leader on a nonprofit board?
I'm sure a number of people are on boards in here, but if you're not, or it's been a while, maybe, probably the first thing I would say is a time commitment. And I hate to start with that because I don't want to be like, I don't have any time. Like we all would say, I don't have any time. But it doesn't have to be huge. And the reason I just say I start with that is just that it is really important to show up for board meetings, though. So if you have made the commitment, please show up for the board meetings. It often can be 1 hour, one time a month. And if that's all the time you have, then that's wonderful. That's perfect. If you don't have more time, don't sign up for the various committees, and don't be on the executive team, and don't sign up to run the gala and something. But if you can do that, they'll love you forever. But just do whatever time commitment you can offer. Money, of course, is another one as well. Most organizations for their board members have like a give or get. So they might have some sort of level that they want you to contribute to the organization. If you're comfortable with that level, or just talk to them about what you're comfortable with, or it could be a get from somewhere else to get money as well. Of course, if you're spending a lot more time and devoting a lot of time, that can kind of offset money as well. But just to be a good board member, be passionate about whatever it is you're choosing to work with. And that's just, what I would say is just like choose something that you're passionate about. We all see a need in our community that, you probably really looked at and been like, gosh, this really touches my heart of, maybe you've had a health issue within your family. That's an organization you want to work with, or, people who are experiencing homelessness, to work with them. We see that. Food insecurity and healthy food, education for kids or for older adults. So, there's definitely something that you care about and are passionate about. And so just get involved with something that you're passionate about.
So I'd like to open up the floor for Q&A, especially for the litigators too, because I know they were like, oh, this session is going to be great because I have no idea what you guys do. So Katrina, I saw your hand.
Not a litigator. Thank you. This is great. So how do we, if we, obviously as a partner firm, if we wanted to really push for more engagement from our attorneys, how do you get them sort of trained and involved, right? I mean, I understand that there's sort of the opportunity for for example, the clinic on corporate governance documents or something like that. You mentioned, I think, a training program on the housing.
Tomorrow. Plan this.
Great. Well done. But what, I guess, are there opportunities for perhaps group training for certain types of things, or how would we sort of, because that's part of the thing, is how do you get that inertia of getting people involved and getting them confident that they can actually be helpful, especially if it's not an area that they, we can't all be corporate and securities attorneys like Kayla is, right? So, I guess that would be my question, is how do you get people trained and involved?
Yeah, it's a great question, a great point. I think it's something we're looking at and really trying to work toward getting more opportunities for the lawyers themselves as well. So it's definitely something we're kind of talking through and working through. And then when we have those available, we'll definitely promote them to, on the distribution list and every other method of communication that we have.
Great.
Yeah.
Just for the list, to follow up the question, is everyone eligible for anything on the list, or is there special training you need for certain kinds of programs to be able to help?
Sure, so on the, officially, the only one that like requires special training is the settlement assistance program, which we do with the Northern District of Illinois. It's a 2-hour, really great webinar that's an introduction to like federal settlements and how to do that. And you have to certify that, you did that training. If you don't need to do it before you sign up, but you need to like do it before you get involved in the particular case. Other than that, on the the litigation side, there aren't like particular requirements, but generally like having at least one partner and one associate for a smaller matter is important. Some may require like a bigger team. But that's kind of like matter dependent. That's kind of on the litigation side. You're better suited, I think, to speak to the corporate and transactional
Yeah,
side.
kind of similar, like we just kind of hope that people are taking things that they know something about. I think it generally works out really well. People, when they see the type of thing and they think like, oh yes, I have that expertise, I would like to help out this organization or individual.
Why don't you do your checklist?
no.
I understand that.
Yes,
So
yes.
Jeremy is not a transactional attorney, but he was one of the volunteer attorneys last year. And I think he did a phenomenal job. And he told me, you can speak to the experience if you like to.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I had really not, dip my toe in that work yet, but there was like a hour-long CLE type presentation given on how to use this tool, and then we were given a tool that really was just like, ask this question. If answer is yes, then mark it right here. So it's like yeah. I wasn't doing anything crazy, but I learned a lot, and I thought that I got a good view that I otherwise wouldn't have ever seen.
I'll just add too that there's that like we also help out along the way for the litigation matters. They're almost all co-counseled. For the settlement assistance program, our colleague Kunyan Gordon is like a wonderful resource who folks who are working on those matters can call it's really a great way to blend and meld kind of some of the subject matter specific expertise that we might have with just the litigation expertise that many of our litigation partners bring to us, and just really can create a great like team dynamic in that way. And then Amy, do you ever get questions from people who are feeling a little stuck on one of the transactional matters?
Yeah. We always stay in the loop. We definitely want you to stay in the loop with us, and if there ever is a question, if there's everything we can do to help out with the matter, we never just place it and go away and you're left on your own. We're always still involved.
So I know this is a transactional seminar, right? But I just wanted to make a plug for the settlement assistance program. It is not only a great opportunity to do things to help, right, the actual client or the actual litigant, but from the lawyer selfish standpoint, it gives you a chance to do a settlement conference before a magistrate judge that you're probably going to see in your practice. The magistrate is very nice and appreciative of you during the settlement conference because you're offering your time. That inherently carries through when you see that same magistrate in your regular litigation setting, right? And so it's very, very helpful from that standpoint. And I believe that the training also gets you credit for the trial bar for those who are still working on the trial bar credit. So it's just a phenomenal program. I encourage everyone to get involved in it. Jeremy and I did one recently.
And if you're already a member of the trial bar and your number gets called, for that year of appointments, I believe the way it works is that if you do 2 settlement assistance program cases in that year, you get a pass on your trial bar case that year. And some people prefer it that way. That the settlement assistance engagement is relatively discreet in that you prepare for the settlement conference and I believe file a mediation statement. Michael will correct me if I'm misstating any of this. And then it either settles or it doesn't, and then that at a settlement conference, and then that's kind of the end of the engagement. And a very high majority of the cases do settle through the settlement system.
Oh, well, I'm one of the litigators in the room, so we've been talking a lot about settlement assistance. But one point is, before you get to that point into the whole litigation process, there are often ways to protect yourself and set yourself up to go to that settlement conference with your strongest foot forward in the best position. So my question is kind of a two-parter. Like, do you give some training to your members, anyone who comes in and joins your program, as to when and how to recognize when an issue is going to evolve into litigation or might start showing those triggers so they can start partnering up with a litigator or a co-counsel, someone who can start leading them in the right direction? And the second question is, do you already have longstanding partnerships with firms, attorneys, or other litigation focused like community groups to provide those attorneys?
Yeah, that's a really good point of trying to stay away from litigation or like any kind of disputes, really. So that's what we're trying not to do, in our in this area. We do make that a point to the client of, that we're not handling business disputes or litigation. There's been a couple of times, where it can be a little bit of a gray area where you think like, yeah, this possibly could tip over of like, for instance, one recently where someone wanted to get out of a contract, and she had good reasons of why she thought she could get out of it and should be able to get out of it. And that's the kind of thing where like, that's, I can have an attorney probably look over things to advise you on like, oh, just, write them a letter or, various things that we could do before that. But it very easily could be where this other party could just be like, nope, you're kind of trapped in this contract, and then it's going to turn into a business dispute. And so that would be something we do not handle. And I make it clear, hopefully, with the volunteers as well, that this is, we do try to really limit the scope to whatever it is, and be clear about that and tell the clients that of like, this is what they're offering to represent you on. And so at least try not to, it does happen from time to time of just them, the clients saying, I need help on these additional things. And then of course it's up to the attorneys and firms if you would like to help them with the additional things, or just come back to us then and say, we, in our letter of engagement, we agreed to do this, we're going to do this for them. Unfortunately, we can't really help with this other thing. And then it just kind of comes back to us, and we can kind of figure it out from there. I'm not sure if we have like specific firms that we kind of can refer like business litigation to, that we work with regularly.
If you want to sign up, though.
Any other questions? Okay, well, please, thank you. Amy, come. I also want to remind you all again that Thompson Coburn is going to be receiving the award at the Power of Connection on June 27th. All attorneys are invited. It doesn't have to just be me or Michael. So if you are available, June 27th, 5 to 7 at Scadden, let us know, and we'll just work with David on how to coordinate so you can come with us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.